Some big races coming up this weekend at Santa Anita. Very excited to talk some races with Colin Sheehan from social media, someone that I've met on Twitter now. You see his work with Trust the Profits, a show doubling down right now. And this is actually the first time that we've had a conversation more than just back and forth on Twitter. How's it going, buddy? And thanks so much for joining me.
It's going great, Gino. Thanks so much for having me. When I entered into this arena of making videos, this was the exact reason I did it for, was to find other horse racing fans. You're kind of, I work with a company of 200 people, and I don't think anybody there talks horses. So you kind of have to go outside your comfort zone to find them. But once I found them, I found a great community here. And I'll be so glad to hear some of the examples or some of the angles you use when you're breaking down horse races. I do have my show Doubling Down. I focus on daily doubles because I think that's a great introductory bet for people that are, hesitant in getting into horse racing. You always see the pick fours and pick fives as the big scores, but you got to start small with that. And you'd be surprised how hard it is to hit a daily double. And my guest tallies, if you take a look at them on my show, you'll see that.
And if you want to give Colin a follow on social media, that's his Twitter handle right there. So make sure to do so, and you can check out some of that great content that he's talking about. For our show, we're going to focus on Santa Anita. They have 4 graded stakes races coming up this weekend. The first of them is the Bob Lewis, which is a 4-horse field of all Baffert runners. And actually, I can expand a little bit here, and we can dive into the DRF past performances as we take a look at race number 3. Now, this is supposed to be a points race, Colin, but none of these horses can actually earn points right now because they're in the Baffert barn and they're trying to get that all figured out. There's actually a court hearing happening right now to see if Baffert runners will be able to run. If not, they will have to disperse and run for other barns, but they won't be able to gain Kentucky Derby points for this race as of right now. So just from a pure, handicapping perspective, looking at this race, you're not going to have anyone of the 3 runners to the inside that are a big price. You'll have hard to figure, but it's always a little difficult when you have one race that's just dominated by a particular trainer, because they can really dictate what kind of trips they want with whatever runners they want in a field like this. So it's definitely not the sexiest race to talk about this weekend.
No, not at all. And with the Withers being canceled at Aqueduct, that's 80 points for the Kentucky Derby Trail that are now off the board.
Yeah.
The Withers being moved to next Saturday, so they're not off the board completely. But between this race and that race, when you add them all up, that's 80 points that are not going to be in the standings. And yeah, so this is disappointing. You got 4 horses here, and everyone's talking about it all being Baffert. Don't forget the point that the number 2 and the number 3 are the same ownership groups as well.
Yep.
So, why aren't these 2 coupled? You get to have 2-horse race with 2 horses coupled.
Yeah.
This would just be a race that I would just stay away from. And
it's not really fun or intriguing, and it's just one that is along the ride on your Saturday card at Santa Anita. There are better races to talk about. I mean, if I'm looking at this race and going to play it at all, I think I like Newgate the most, but I'm with you. Like, I'm not really going to be involved in this race very much. I think based on what he's done, Newgate, and who he's faced, being behind Cave Rock and Forte and having a meltdown a couple times, he's probably the most battle tested and seasoned of these runners.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. So, I wouldn't bet this race, but as I do my daily double show, I said, well, I might as well bring a daily double to Gino. And I would, you got to pick 1 horse if you're doing a daily double into the next race. And 2, Newgate would absolutely be my choice here. If you want to look at that price, the 4 hard to figure, the speed figures are definitely light. But the one thing that I paid, that kind of jumped off the page to me was the workouts. I mean, this horse has been working really, really good.
Yep.
But I don't know the intentions, and
that's right. And like we're saying, what kind of trips? Like, who's getting the lead? Is one of them going to be getting a lone kind of front trip? Are they going to just try to stack themselves in order of where they want, or is it just sort of, hey, we have them all, just kind of let them loose? It doesn't really matter who wins or who loses,
Yeah, and in these types of races, Baffert jokes aside and ownership groups aside, when you only have 2, 3, 4 horses, I usually want the best jockey. And to me, the best jockey is on the 3 inside horses.
Yes.
And using Frankie Dettori or Johnny V is never a bad thing. So I'd be comfortable using Newgate and watching just to see. We obviously saw Arabian Night. Don't get confused with Arabian Lion in this race. Arabian Night is the monster that we saw last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But you want to pay attention for those of us that are paying close attention to the Derby Trail of which of these are the ones that are kind of that second tier in the Baffert barn, I'd say. So, maybe one of them pops up, but To me, it's Newgate, and you kind of move on from there.
I agree. Now, the fourth race is one of the other graded stakes races, a much more bettable race here. We have a mile race on the turf, and it looks like it should have at least an honest pace. Down on the inside, we have a couple horses that are pretty quick. Bay Storm should be forwardly placed. Hamwood Flyer is also very quick. They like to be right on the lead. And then that should set it up nicely for other horses who want to be more mid-pack or closing. Even One Silk Stocking will probably be close. School Dance is pretty versatile. So I think this should be a pretty fair and honest run race. And I think you can make some cases for a few. I think it's a good spot for closing remarks, Colin, just sort of the way that she's coming into this race. She's going to be making her second start at 5. And if you look at who she's been facing recently, 3 of her last 5 races, she's faced Queen Goddess, who we just saw win the Pegasus Filly and Mare Turf. And then in some of her other races, she has losses to horses like Shantisara, who was second in that race. So last weekend, franked her form pretty well with the results of that big race for the fillies and mares.
Yeah, and there's 2 horses that returned from that same last race, that Grade 3 Frankel. That's the 4 Closing Remarks and the 7.
Yep.
Good luck to me to try and pronounce
Quattrell.
Quattrell, yep. We'll go with. There you go. Quattrell is the one that worries me at 8-1. I thought that was an interesting horse for a price. I wrote down for the number 4 Closing Remarks. I wonder if this race is too short for this horse.
You're right. And
closes late, and maybe the time, there's quicker 1 mile distance for the 4 Closing Remarks is actually why I went away from Closing Remarks.
And now Quattrell is 100% a horse that's going to be on my radar, pick 4s, any types of rolling exotics that you're playing in here. She fits really well, and her price is very honest. And she's super consistent. She just kind of needs the right type of trip. But again, she was right behind Queen Goddess, and she hasn't done much wrong in 2022. She had a really solid 2022. If you're someone who likes to play off of speed figures, she fits really well on those. She just will need a little bit of a trip because she's not necessarily the type of horse who can make her own trip. She's a little more pace dependent.
Yeah, the horse that interested me is actually the 2 Hamwood Flyer. You said that she'd be on the lead. This fleet-footed filly does more than get on the lead. If you look at the calls of this horse, last race, look at the second call, it was 8 lengths ahead. The race before that was 8 lengths ahead at the first call. Go back 4 was 9 lengths ahead at the second call. And we just saw this horse named Jack Hyde over in Newcastle, if you haven't seen that on Twitter, where he was up 50 lengths and was able to hold on. That's kind of what I thought of when I saw this Hamwood Flyer, who just goes. And I said fleet-footed filly because that's what I think it was Trevor Demon said in the last race when she opened up.
Yeah.
She was caught by Regal Glory and Pizza Bianca, 2 horses that, that's nothing to sneeze at. You're getting 4-1 with Juan Hernandez. That last race was a Grade 1, something that I like to pay attention to. These are horses that haven't won graded stake races because I like to, if you see a Grade 3 race, I immediately go through and see, okay, who has Grade 1 or Grade 2 wins. And a lot of them have come close.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking Hamwood Flyer may be able to get away here. He's got a little bit of speed to the inside with the 1 and Johnny V, Bay Storm.
But one of them could blink, right? If like the 2 is sent hard, that could very easily be a situation where the 1 Bay Storm says, hey, I'm not going to get caught up in that. I'll try to just sit behind her. And then, when you have a race like this where you have these really fast horses, a lot of times that's what happens. More often than not, when we're watching these races around the country, we get 1 or 2 of the horses that we think is going to be up pressing it that takes back, and then it leaves 1 horse like a Hamwood Flyer out front alone.
Yeah, that's a situation that I'm a little bit hopeful for. You got to watch out for that Bay Storm, though. He's 10-for-11 in the money. 11 races, 10 times in the money. Probably not a horse you want to leave off underneath, and you're getting 5-1. So those 2 horses right there are very intriguing to me. The only other horse that I looked at and I would mention, and as you're looking at the double, and I said you're taking obviously a low price in the previous race, you'd either have to single number 6 School Dance if you're going to go back to back with Newgrange, but I don't think we've seen the best of this horse yet. I do pay attention to speed figures. I go by Brisnet, but as I look at your Bayer speed figures they're continuing to improve.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we've seen the ceiling of this horse yet. The one thing that did concern me has only been 2 works. Ran the day after Christmas in that Grade 1, finished second by a head I mean, that's really, really good in the field here if you're going by those grade 1, grade 2 rankings. So I'd either go with School Dance alone, or I'm going to go on the inside with Hamwood Flyer, Bay Storm as my other two.
In what is a really fun competitive race. Like you're talking about School Dance, what's nice about this filly too, she's super versatile. Like we've seen her sit a little closer in the last couple races because they were going a little slower early on, but she has no problem sitting mid pack or sitting farther back. She can really adapt to whatever scenario the race calls for. And that's always nice in like a field like this on the turf where you can get into some traffic sometimes. You don't exactly know what type of trip you might get. The one that I just wanted to mention also, at least, will probably be another like multi-exotics player for me. We talk about Nadette, the 3. She made her first start in North America on October the 29th, and she was 10 lengths off. She angled out at the top of the lane. She really got going late. She finished second in that race, which was the grade 3 autumn miss. But in that race, she lost to Rhea Moon, and we saw Rhea Moon come back and win the grade 1 American Oaks, beating School Dance. So we know that she lost to a grade 1 quality filly, and I think she could be even better now with a little more time in the U.S. She's been around for a couple months now. She's probably a little bit more acclimated to it. If she gets away just a little bit quicker, where she doesn't have to come from dead last, if the pace is quick and you're using a couple horses in here, if Hamwood Flyer for some reason does get, caught up in a battle with a Bay Storm or maybe others, Nadette is a little bit interesting to me. If you also look back when she was in France, she ran behind a horse named Nashua, who came over here and ran in the Breeders' Cup. And Nashua, I think, was 4th in the Breeders' Cup filly in Mare Turf and is a real quality filly. So she's faced some pretty tough horses overseas and then came over here and ran well in her first start in the U.S. So I thought she made a little bit of sense in here too, in a kind of a fun race. Like definitely different than the race we just talked about, the third race here. Like a few different directions you can go and horses you can make cases for here.
Absolutely, we've doubled the field, so you're on there. And I will say that even though we've doubled the field and you've got 8 entries, Nadette, you can never fault you for taking these horses coming from overseas on the turf, especially, maybe not the first time, but the second time. But one thing also that I'd add, this horse she's faced very big fields, 11 horse fields, 12 horse fields, 17 horse fields in that Nashua. So as that pace scenario that you can see happening, and I certainly can too, if the first 1 and 2 go into a speed duel and it melts, this horse will be coming late, but it's not going to have as much trouble or as much traffic to try and navigate through that it's used to.
Very good point. As we finish up here with the grade 3 megahertz, which is race number 4 on the Saturday card at Santa Anita. The other 2 graded stakes races are later in the card. They go as races 9 and 10. Race number 9 is the grade 2 Santa Monica, and it is a filly and mare sprint race, Colin, where Fun to Dream is in very nice form for Bob Baffert. She is 5 for 6. She's actually a Calbred who proved that she's classy enough to win a grade 1 when she stepped into the La Brea on the day after Christmas. She defeated Awake at Midnight. They've developed a little bit of a rivalry because Awake at Midnight has gotten the better of Fun to Dream when they raced back in September of 2022. From just a pure conversation standpoint, those will be the 2 horses that'll probably be your favorite and your second choice in here. And a lot of people's wagers will go through the 2 of them. How are you approaching this race?
Yeah, I couldn't get past these 2. I think this is a 2-horse race, and you'd have to pick one. I would single one of them. You got to make a decision, have an opinion, and go with it.
I agree.
Doing your pick 5, you can't take both of them. So pick one of them, right? And, just taking a step back, like I said, how I handicap is I look at what the class is. So this is grade 2. I then go look and see, are there any grade 1 winners in the race? And as you had just mentioned, the number 2, Fun to Dream, is the only one with a grade 1 victory. Number 5 has a second in a grade 1 and a grade 2, so not too bad, right? The next thing I'll look at is the 7 furlong distance is a tricky distance. Sprinters, it's too long. For horses that like to route, it's too short. So I like to pay attention on the 7 furlong races of which horses have done well. Well, we end up right back at the number 2 and the number 5. The number 2 is 3 for 3 at the distance. The number 5 has 2 seconds in 3 races at that distance. Then the last thing I like to look at is speed figures. Speed figures get a little bit closer with the rest of the field, aside from the 6. They're at least in the ballpark. You've had some that would have to kind of pop at a race like number 3, Samurai Charm, had a big race in Del Mar in September, but you know, you're kind of hoping that that horse comes back to that. And to me, it just ends up between the 2 and the 5, and the Fun to Dream 5 for 6 lifetime. I had a hard time getting by that, so I will take the Baffert with Juan Hernandez Fun to Dream as my single through this race.
Yeah, we had 2 races of the 4 that we're going to talk about that are probably a little more formful, and then 2 that were maybe races you could get a little more creative in the grass races. This one is hard to get past both the 2 and the 5 as the major players in here, as you perfectly carved out. Now, the 6 was interesting because I've gone back and forth with her. Like last year, she had some races that looked like she was going to be projecting really nicely. And then after that Summertime Oaks, she like if she's in that region with just speed figures, she's actually pretty competitive with this field at around, and she's at a mile and a 16th here. Then she went on the turf a few times and she didn't run quite as well. And, she got beat by a really nice Spenderella. Her San Clemente actually wasn't all that bad. Then she's off for a while, off for just a couple months. She shows back up and she hasn't run poorly, but just way, way lower as far as like speed figures. And she's going to have to get back to some of these other races to compete. And I don't know if she's enough value to like, I want to make some cases for her. And we were talking with Matt DeSantis earlier. Like if I'm going to play this race, it would probably be trying to, I guess I would try to beat, like you said, I'm not going to use both the 2 and the 5. So maybe I would go the 5 and throw the 6 in on a ticket or 2 if I'm trying to get there. But I keep wanting to give Awake at Midnight another shot against Fun to Dream. As that you carved it out, it's just really hard to get anything other than those 3. Like I just really couldn't make much of a case for the others. And I don't know if they offer us enough value. Like you pointed out Samurai Charm, who has a couple good races here. She just kind of got beat on the square last time by Lady T. And if we think Lady T might be a couple low, I don't know if, the 4 or 5 to 1 on her is enough for me.
Yeah, you're trying to get too cute, I think.
Right? No, exactly. You kind of talk yourself into it too much, and it's just not like they just don't feel like they fit quite as well. So that is the grade 2, Santa Monica with Fun to Dream and Awake at Midnight, the major players in here. Let's turn the page to race number 10. It's the grade 3 Thunder Road to close out the Santa Anita card on Saturday. This race is a little more contentious. We have a lukewarm 3-1 favorite, which is a very honest horse that you sort of know what you're going to get from, Air Force Red. Very quick. He's going to go to the front. If he gets the right type of pace shape, he'll win. When he doesn't, he backs up and he doesn't really even hit the board, but he's kind of an old, like, know what you're going to get from him. So he'll be out front. And if he gets a little other pace, that's where things will open up. And him playing him at 5-2 isn't really intriguing to me. He might be a horse you want to throw into like a pick 4 because he could catch a flyer, but I could make some cases for 2 or 3 other strong horses in here. Who are you looking at in the Thunder Road, Colin?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the funnest race of the 4 that we're looking at.
For sure.
To me, I went to the number 10 with Frankie Dettori aboard, Dark Ship, similar to what we had just talked about 2 back with Nadette closing, and this horse had been running over in Great Britain, comes back, puts up a 92 on mine. You had an 86 on yours.
I'm going to pull up the race right now too that he ran at Keeneland. He's the number 10 in this race. You could see he's a gray, and so you'll be able to notice that he kind of completely misses the break, and he gets squeezed right back. So in your first start in a few months, in your first start in North America, you're completely last in a race where the winner goes wire to wire. Just a lot of things were up against him in this first start.
Yeah, I didn't notice that. So thanks. That makes me like him even more. And the thing that I also liked was been working very consistently. I count 6 works on the workout tab, including a nice 48-second 4 furlong tightener back on January 28th. So not too long ago, but like you said, you can go in multiple ways here. Air Force Red was one that I had my check mark on, has been continuously improving. But as I kind of looked more into the race, like you just said, we talk ourselves into others. And my reason for that was 3 in a row with now putting up a lifetime best last time out December 31st. 5-year-olds, those are all the races that were done as a 4-year-old. I'm just wondering is that 99 going to be the top, or can this horse take another step forward? If he does, then he's right there. But as you said, 3-1, I think there's some more intriguing options in here.
Yep.
including, as I said, the number 10. And then the other one I looked at was the number 1, all the way on the inside, Earl's Rock. One thing to pay attention to is the jockey. When Pratt's aboard, he's 3 for 3, right? Gotta love that. I like the 5-1 price. And I'm kind of contradicting what I just said, but I'm hoping that this 5-year-old, with the smaller work that you've seen, I like.
He might have some of his best races ahead of him. He doesn't have a whole lot of mileage, right?
That's what I was getting at. Yeah, and what you have there is you have a couple of 89 and a 90. Usually when you see those two together, hopefully you're going to see another step up. So this horse last race December 4th, but the workouts just did a nice 6 furlong minute and a 12 on January 29th. So the 1 and the 10 were the two prices that I had circled around for me. How about
the 10 was my top selection in here too. We're both on the same one with with Dark Shift. The 9 Hit the Road is super classy. He was at the end of 2021, he was getting really good. Like he won the grade 1 Kilroe in 2021. And then towards the end of 2021, he was behind Mo Forza a couple times. He was going to head into the Breeders' Cup and he had to miss the Breeders' Cup. He ran in the Pegasus last year, just didn't really fire. And then he was off for almost the whole year. He came back, and I don't know if it's this race, but I think in the next race or two, he's got a big one coming back in him. He's got a nice ceiling. The one that's a really big price that I was talking out with Matt a little bit too is Irideo. He has some good races at a mile that are a bit intriguing if he just sort of gets the kind of trip that he needs. Like he has a couple wins going this trip. He sprinted last time out, but he just needs the right kind of trip. But his ceiling is not far off from, what the best races in here with the best horses. If you're spreading out in this race and trying to look for some prices, he's the type of horse who I would throw in a pick 4 and a pick 5. Our buddy Matt DeSantis, he was making a nice case for There Goes Harvard, a horse whose grass form is very good. And maybe he can be the horse who's, not too far behind Air Force Red. If that one stops, he could kind of be sitting in maybe like the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th spot and maybe fall into a good trip. So there do seem to be some fun, 5-1-ish plus horses. You and I have talked about a 5-1, an 8-1, another 6-1, an 8-1, a 15. This feels like one of the races that you can maybe get a little more creative.
For sure. The one concern I had on the Irideo was just the 0 for 5 at Santa Anita.
Yeah, may not be best over this turf course.
So the long shot that I was looking at was, I hate to say it again, but the other Baffert, number 2. You're getting a Baffert at 15-1. This horse hasn't raced in 405 days, which, funny story, 3 weeks ago on Doubling Down, I talked about I don't bet horses that haven't raced in like plus 200 days, 300 days. And I got beat by, I think it was Spooky Channel, who came off that like 400 day layoff. I'm like, are you kidding me, right? So I that's part of doing these shows is fun. You talk stuff out loud, then you think about it. And then I said, okay, so this horse is 405 days off. Well, first thing is, all right, it's Baffert, so let's look a little bit closer. 8 workouts and about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them bullets. You go back to this horse's grade 2 American Turf back in May of 21. That was at Churchill Downs, grade 2 winner. 3rd in a grade 1 up at Saratoga. Obviously the last race out, which was December of 21, was a 5th place in a grade 2. But at 15-1 for a horse that's been working that well, and it's Baffert.
You just eliminate his last 2 races too, because they were layoff races and they sent him to a long layoff. So we know there's been physical issues with this horse. He's a first-time gelding now, and just his running style should at least put him in a good spot if he's fresh. If he's fresh and ready to go, which his training pattern says, and the fact that they actually tossed him into this race, they at least feel confident enough that he can compete. I don't have any problem throwing this horse into exotics at a big, big price, or at least in under spots and trying to spice up some value, because I prefer him than, I talked about Irideo, who's like a deep closer. But if you're looking at other deeper closers, this horse could at least be in a nice spot.
Yeah, maybe a little bit in over his head, but look, if 15-1 is a horse I would throw into my ticket. But I'm glad to say you like the 10 as well, because that's we didn't talk before this show. For those that are listening.
No, so awesome Colin, now tell everybody again what kind of stuff you have coming up this weekend, where we could find any more of your work, and yeah, like anything else that you want to mention or plug to before we get out of here.
Yeah, sure. You can find us on Trust the Profits on the YouTube. I have a show called Doubling Down where we do a daily double every single week. I'm always looking for guests. My show is not inclusive to people that have done this type of stuff before. I'm open to anybody's voice that wants to come on, because I think that's what makes this community a lot better, is hearing more voices and how we look and see at races. This is the first time me and Gino did it, and we both came to the same horse.
You can always learn from someone, like good or bad, right? There are things that you can learn and say, hey, I like that, or things that you can pick up and say, I've tried that angle, or that didn't work for me. We're all workshopping things here and there, and I completely agree with you. That's what's been so nice about the horse racing Twitter and just the last few years. Getting to link up with people like you. We've never had a conversation like this, but this was an absolute blast. And I hope it's the first of many conversations that we have talking races.
Absolutely. I expect you to be on Doubling Down soon.
Yeah, please. I owe you one, and we'll get you back here again very soon to talk about another big day of racing all over the place. So Colin, thank you so much, buddy. I hope you have a great rest of your night, and good luck this weekend in all of your plays, and we'll talk racing again real soon.
You too.
Folks, thank you for hanging out with us here. If you're listening on the podcast, thanks so much. We'll still have plenty more on That's What G Said podcast to come. If you're watching us on social media, thanks so much. And make sure to give Colin a subscribe and to follow him on Twitter. Thanks so much. Talk to you.